Before the Second World War, Germany had a Jewish problem. On November 8, 1938, in Germany, a riot against the Jews' Crystal Night took place. The Nazis housed the Jews in the camp, but many of them were released soon. After that, the Nazis planned to clean out the Jews from Europe, that is, the final solution of the Jews' problem. This meant expulsion of the Jews out of Germany's power sphere by mass migration. Hermann Göring commissioned Reinhard Heydrich to organize the Central Reich Office for Jewish Emigration with the goal of encouraging Jewish emigration by all means available. However, as the war developed and German dominion sphere expanded, a large number of Jews inevitably in areas such as Poland, France also entered Germany's dominant territory. Heydrich informed the German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop on June 24, 1940, that it was now necessary to subject the overall problem to a territorial solution. In response to this directive, the Foreign Ministry developed the so-called Madagascar Plan, which provided for deportation to Madagascar of all Jews living in the German sphere of influence. Many people would have doubted whether this story is true or not. It sounds like a suspicious conspiracy theory. However, this is a historical fact without doubt. At that time, Madagascar was a French colony. Therefore, this Madagascar Plan became a condition for Germany to sign peace treaty with France. On July 31, 1941, the final solution of the Jewish problem was introduced by Göring's directive. This document clearly states that to solve the Jewish question through emigration or evacuation in a most favorable way. This is the original German sentence. Because it is a photograph, it is quite hard to see. This is the image of the document. In addition, this document is one of the important evidence in the Holocaust controversy. As to the interpretation of this, I will repeatedly explain it in the later video. However, according to the progress of the war, the transfer destination was changed to the eastern area probably around October. And the Madagascar Plan was finally abandoned in February 1942. Franz Rademacher, the official of the German Bureau of Foreign Affairs, was responsible for the Jewish problem. He sent a letter to Bielefeld of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on February 10, 1942. It was written like this. Hitler said that the Jews should be removed not to Madagascar, but to the east, and added, Madagascar will no longer be needed for the final solution. Next, I will explain the basic knowledge about concentration camps by Nazis. Originally, the concentration camp was built with the purpose of neutralizing robust political prisoners by re-education. In 1933, the first concentration camp, Dachau camp, was built in Munich. Following that, 5 camps were created by the time of the war. People housed were mainly hostile forces such as political prisoners and partisans. Famous Holocaust witnesses such as Primo Michel Levi and Philip Muller were also partisans. Prisoners were distinguished by triangular patterns sewn on prison clothes. Red was a political prisoner. Green was an antisocial molecule such as ordinary criminals and tramps. Black was a prisoner of war. As of the summer of 1937, the number of concentration camp prisoners was about 7,500. As the war evolved, the role of the camp changed. Utilization of labor force became more important than re-education of prisoners. If you read the report on April 30, 1942 to Himmler from Oswald Paul SS Economic Management Central Headquarters, you can understand it. This is an important sentence, so I will read the full sentence. The war has brought about a visible change in the structure of the concentration camps and their tasks with regards to the utilization of inmates. The increase in the number of inmates on the grounds of security, educational, or preventive measures alone is no longer one of the primary purposes. The chief emphasis has shifted to the economic aspect. The mobilization of inmate labor first for military purposes, increased armaments, and later for peaceful tasks is increasingly shifting to the foreground. Based on recognition of this fact, necessary measures result which demand a gradual transfer of the concentration camps from their early one-sided political form into an organization reflecting their economic tasks. There is much evidence that Nazis used prisoners in camps as a labor force. I will introduce one of them. SS Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler wrote a letter to concentration camp inspector Richard Glucks. Be prepared to accept 100,000 male and up to 50,000 female Jews in the concentration camps over the next few weeks. Great economic tasks will arise for the concentration camps in the next few weeks. The Auschwitz camp also had a very economic role. Please check the geography around the Auschwitz camp. Before the war, Auschwitz was a late rural village from Western Europe. However, it has been transformed into a modern city with a modern chemical plant. One of the reasons is that Auschwitz is adjacent to Upper Silesia and is located at the nodal point of the railroad. The second reason is that this land is the point where the Sola River and the Vistula River join together and is rich in water. Therefore, Auschwitz was an ideal place for the chemical industry to develop. Also, Auschwitz was quite far from the UK, so until around mid-1944 it was also an area where the Allied bombs do not rise. Germany was short of essential oil for the military industry, but coal was abundant. Therefore, in Germany, technology to produce gas and liquid hydrocarbons from coal has developed. They were also used as raw materials for petrochemical industries such as artificial rubber, fuel, and lubricant production. Since the spring of 1944, the Allied reconnaissance plane took many aerial photographs around Auschwitz. If you look at these pictures, you will know the size of the chemical plant. IG Farben AG made a huge chemical plant in this district in a few years by utilizing the prison labor force of the Auschwitz camp. Furthermore, after the war against the Soviet Union broke out, the Nazis became able to use a large number of prisoners of the Soviet army. So, the armed SS constructed in the immediate vicinity of Auschwitz I is the Birkenau POW camp, the so-called Auschwitz II. From this point on, when I write Auschwitz, please interpret these two camps as a generic term. On March 19, 1941 and April 24, the Technical Committee decided to produce synthetic rubber and acetic acid at Auschwitz. Needless to say, synthetic rubber is an indispensable material for military vehicles and general automatic tires. The two factories were full of Jewish prisoners. Importantly, in the Auschwitz industrial area, both regular workers and prison workers worked together. Civilian laborers are wearing a green armband, prisoners were wearing striped prison clothes, so they could easily distinguish themselves. In response to the need for numerous prisoners in the Auschwitz area industry, small labor camps were created one after another in Upper Silesia. About 30 satellite camps were connected with the Auschwitz camp organization and accommodated prison workers near the work site. In addition, those who cannot be hired in the Auschwitz industrial zone were allocated to other camps and military factories, such as the Stuttgart camp, which is the allocation center for the labor force. In this way, prisoners in camps were valuable labor for Nazi. However, the mortality rate was very high in the initial camp. All researchers agree that the cause is poor nutritional status. Therefore, the Nazis tried to improve the working conditions of the camp. On December 28, 1942, concentration camp inspector Richard Glucks issued the following directive to the director of 19 camps. The first camp doctors must strive with all means available to them to ensure that the mortality figures in the individual camps are to be considerably reduced. The camp doctors must supervise the nourishment of the inmates more than in the past, and submit suggestions for improvement in conformity with the administrations. Such measures must exist, not merely on paper, but must rather be regularly controlled by the camp doctors. The Reichsführer SS has ordered that the mortality must be reduced at all costs. In fact, with these improvements the mortality rate of camps declined by 80% in the following 8 months. The image to be displayed next is the material discovered in Mauthausen camp in 1998. This includes the prescribed amount of food for 1 week given to prisoners. This was applied to all camps in common. Based on this, I will calculate the calorie intake per day from April 28, 1944 to February 28, 1945. The left is the weight of ingredients and the right is converted to calories. Calculating from these figures, the calorie intake per day is 2030 kilocalories. In addition, the following supplementary distribution is to be given to workers engaged in manual labor. By doing this, the daily calorie intake of a physical worker is 2,709 kilocalories. This number is enough for people of 175 centimeters tall. Also interestingly, pseudo coffee with no nutritional value is distributed. As evidence that this number was not just face up, there is a survey result during the war by the International Red Cross. Between 1943 and 1944, the hard worker had taken at least 2,750 kilocalories a day at least. This is almost in agreement with the previous number. I will introduce documents on food conditions of other camps in letters. Since scrolling is fast, if you are interested please push the pause button and read. Because it is important, I will repeatedly mention it. Nazis thought that lowering the mortality rate at camps and improving the working environment is essential for increasing the production efficiency of military factories. Very valuable materials that support it are in the Auschwitz Museum. The circular letter I will introduce was sent to all the concentration camp directors by leader of the SSWVHA Oswald Pohl on October 26, 1943. Although it is a long sentence, I read the full sentence. Within the framework of the armaments production, the concentration camps have become a factor of decisive military significance. We have created incomparable armaments factories where nothing existed before. In earlier years, within the framework of the then applicable educational tasks, it could be a matter of indifference whether an inmate performed useful work or not. Now, however, the working power of the inmates is of significance, and all measures of the commander, leaders of the V service and doctors must apply themselves to the maintaining the health and efficiency of the inmates. Not from reasons of sentimentality, but rather because we need them, with their arms and legs, because they must contribute to the achievement of a great victory by the German people. Therefore we must be attentive to the well-being of the inmates. I set the following objective: no more than a maximum of 10% of all inmates may be unable to work as a result of disease. This objective must be reached in a common task of all responsible officials. The following are necessary for this purpose. 1. Correct and adequate food. 2. Correct and adequate clothing. 3. The utilization of all natural remedies. 4. Avoidance of all effort not immediately necessary for the performance of needed work. 5. Premiums for efficiency. I will bear personal responsibility for the supervision of the measures repeatedly described in the present letter. How about that? Did you notice the part "we must be attentive to the well-being of the inmates"? Was there really such a thing? There are many people who feel a sense of incompatibility. So, I will explain the state of life of little prisoners of concentration camps. Please see the result of this image search. Similar images are searched in large numbers. Do you know what kind of keyword it searched for? As you can see, it is Auschwitz pool. This is a swimming pool for prisoners in Auschwitz I. The length of this is 20 meters and a jumping stick is attached. Even now, this is of course present in this place. Dr. Mark Klein, a prisoner of Auschwitz, is a passage in his memoir, describing this pool. During sun and holy days when most commandos had the day off, working hours were different. The roll call took place at noon. During the evening one relaxed or dedicated his time to a selection of athletic or cultural activities. Soccer, basketball, and water ball games, in the outdoor pool that had been built by inmates within the camp, attracted the spectator masses. It should be noted that only the fit and well-nourished inmates, who were spared from hard labor, could get engaged in such games that attracted the vivid applause of the masses of the other inmates. The playground was in this place of Birkenau. The prisoners watched and went to football every Sunday from May to October. SS members seem to have been playing with prisoners. In addition, the prisoners also conducted boxing, wrestling, volleyball, athletics and so on. The image of this fencing game shows a banner called Auschwitz Sports Association. In the following screenshot, it is the result of image search with the keyword Auschwitz Orchestra. This picture is also in the photo archive of the site United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. This was taken in the vicinity of the entrance gate of Auschwitz I in 1943. The conductor is a Polish prisoner Franciszek Nyaryklo. Also in the caption is a concert of an orchestra performed by a prisoner on Sunday. However, the expression for SS is also included. If this is correct, was the concert could only see SS members? However, there is another famous picture exhibited at the Auschwitz Museum. There are some people in the audience clothed in obvious striped prisoners' clothes. Because there is a testimony that prisoners and SS members were playing soccer together, was the prisoner and soldier watching both at the concert? It seems there was an orchestra even in Birkenau, Auschwitz too. It seems that the prisoners were holding concerts around the edge of the playground explained earlier. Composer Mahler's niece, Alma Rose, was the conductor of the Auschwitz Women's Orchestra. This is also described in Wikipedia. Ignaz Speiser was a violinist in a camp orchestra, and Simon Laux was a composer, violinist, and conductor of a camp orchestra. There was a choir. This seems to be a program of concerts handmade by prisoners. There was a theater here. At the cinema the prisoners were able to appreciate a variety of movies. There were also libraries and campus universities. The prisoners got paid according to the outcome of the work. They got sweets, ice creams, cosmetics etc. at the camp bar with such coupon tickets. Also, interestingly, it seems that unique banknotes were used in camps. This page introduces various banknotes that were circulated in camps. The Welfare Department responded to inquiries from outside and advised on legal affairs, inheritance, birth, marriage, death, inheritance to the bereaved of prisoners' deceased property. Actually, there were a couple married in the camp. I present screenshots of Wikipedia as an information source. Rudolf Friemel was a member of the German Socialist Workers' Party and was housed in Auschwitz as a political prisoner. Later, he was allowed to marry with Margareta Fair, who was a lover. This is a picture that blesses the marriage of the couple. It seems that this photo was circulated inside the camp on March 18, 1944. Unfortunately, Friemel passed away at the young age of 34 at December 1944. This couple is written only on the wiki as an example of getting married inside the camp, but its basis is unknown. There was also a family camp in Auschwitz. It is also said that there are 3,000 birth records in total, but the basis for this number is unknown. However, multiple birth certificates of newborn babies have been confirmed in this way. This is regarded as images of babies in Auschwitz. Everyone may have been hunting their hair for the prevention of typhus. It is a very good picture, but unfortunately the information source is unknown. Many children lived in the camp. I will explain later that children exist in the dead record. This is the result of image search with Auschwitz, children. It is a photograph in the Holocaust Memorial Museum of the United States, which was taken when Auschwitz was occupied by the Soviet Army in January 1945. In general, only photographs of patients who are thin as far as the limit are famous. However, when you look at pictures of such healthy children, they are not thin at all. There was also a family camp block for gypsies and children were living. Interesting documents on this are found. It is a letter addressed to the Auschwitz Central Construction Bureau on March 23, 1944. For the damaged roofs of kindergarten blocks 29 and 31 in the gypsy camp, I request 100 rolls of roofing felt, very urgent. Edward Worth's garrison physician who issued this letter was a noble character who worked hard to improve the health problems of the prisoners of Auschwitz. I will explain in Chapter 18 that he plays a decisively important role in the Holocaust controversy. The end of commentary on life in the camp is Jerusalem Post article on January 25, 1995. Among them, in 1943, Daniel K., a 10-year-old boy, presents experiences in the Auschwitz camp. The chorale from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony was performed by a Jewish children's choir at Auschwitz. Birkenau in 1943. I was a member of that choir. I remember my first engagement with culture, with history, and with music in the camp. In March 1944, I was severely ill with diphtheria and was sent to the camp hospital barracks. My mother had asked to be transferred to stay with me in the hospital. Response not stated. Nurses, doctors, and patients survived. One of the youth leaders of our group asked to establish an education center for children. He was given permission, and in a short time the education center became a spiritual and social center for the family camp. The family camp. It was the soul of the camp. Musical and theatrical performances, including a children's opera, were held at the center. There were discussions of various ideologies: Zionism, socialism, Czech nationalism. There was a conductor named Imre, who organized the children's choir. Rehearsals were held in a huge lavatory barracks where the acoustics were good. Naturally, the events occurring inside the concentration camps were not only fun. In case of breaking the rules, there were obviously penalties. Kazimierz Smolin, former director of the Auschwitz Museum, wrote an article on the punishment system at Auschwitz based on German documents, in which the various punishments provided for by the regulation are listed in order of severity. 1. Warning with threat of punishment. 2. Additional work. 3. Temporary transfer to a punishment company. 4. Arrest. 5. Severe arrest with withdrawal of food. 6. Arrest in solitary confinement. 7. Beating, 25 blows. In executing this beating, it seems that a preliminary examination by a doctor was necessary. Also, in the case of executing the death penalty, approval by the National Security Central Headquarters was required before the execution. In Auschwitz, all the SS crew members had to sign the following oath. However, even if such a provision is made, it is not necessarily strictly observed in practice. Depending on the camp, illegal abuse seems to occur frequently. Dr. Morgan was outsourced from Heinrich Himmler during wartime and investigated atrocities and corruption of camp staff. With this, 200 charges were confirmed. Hermann Florstedt, commander of the Majdanek camp, was arrested for corruption and for illegal execution of the prisoner. Later he became the capital punishment. I will also explain the release from the camp. The following is a letter of release from Auschwitz-Birkenau camp dated June 8, 29, July 21, 1944. In the official publication of the Auschwitz Museum, Auschwitz Calendar, 1,100 prisoners were released between February 1942 and February 1945. However, revisionist researchers Carlo Mattano and Jürgen Graf speculate that the actual number of people was far from the records found. Besides, it seems that 5,000 from Stuttgart camp and 20,000 from Majdanek camp are released. Auschwitz seems to have been particularly good in the labor environment among concentration camps. Bruno Baum, the last leader of the German Communist Youth Organization, was housed in Auschwitz, but he wrote that Auschwitz eventually became a model camp. One of the reasons why the Nazis had to improve the environment of the camp was, of course, to increase the productivity of the military factory. But that alone is insufficient as a reason they had to build swimming pools and cinemas. Actually, there was another very reasonable and fruitful purpose. But now it is not time for me to explain it. In Oita ahead, in Chapter 10, I'll pick up this theme again. I have introduced the appearance of a peaceful and ordered concentration camp. In the next Chapter 3, I have to explain the nightmare that struck the camp.